Alright, what's up, y'all? We're back again, and of course, now we're back in talking a little more of the pro wrestling world, and of course, we're going to be talking women of pro wrestling, particularly, and not in any specific order, or maybe it is, but we're actually going to start with shouting out, for one, Toni Storm, as she's actually been a recipient of a couple of awards and a couple of awards, year-end awards, and of course, I'm speaking specifically about Fightful Awards, which I honestly didn't realize they had their own awards that they were doing, and I'm actually liking that they are because they've actually set up some pretty cool categories. Shout out to an Izzy Moreno. If you don't remember who she is, she was actually the young Bailey fan from back in the day during the NXT days, who, oddly enough, then Sasha Banks actually made her cry, so on and so forth. But obviously, if you remember who that is, then that's who she is now. And of course, she was named the 2024 Fightful Rookie of the Year, and deservedly so. She's actually, if you've seen her from a distance, of course, you've seen that she's obviously grown up a huge pro wrestling fan and actually made it her aspiration to become a pro wrestler herself, and she's very well on her way to doing that. Has done really well on the indie scene, has actually done some pretty cool things with Thunder Rosa, but nonetheless, I gotta talk about Toni Storm, as she was actually given the awards for both best, I believe it was female promo, and best overall female performer of the year, and all of those are deservingly so. I think that 2024 was, and even a lot of 2023 for that matter, it was just literally Toni time throughout all of that, and deservedly so. She's still relatively young, I believe about 26, 27, somewhere around Rhea Ripley's age, which I believe is where that's at, but either way is still yet to really scratch the surface on all the things that she's truly capable of doing, and she's actually been around for quite some time. But I just wanted to put this over because, yeah, that's something that's deservedly so. I don't know the other award platforms and where they're at on that, but if she's not unanimously the female wrestler of the year for 2024, I'm not really sure. There's not a very, very long list of other women that you put ahead of that, but you definitely got to look at Toni Storm as top-notch, no matter how you slice it up. And with that in mind, speaking of top-notch, we got to talk about Jordynne Grace, who made her final TNA appearance last night at TNA Genesis, which actually I didn't get to see it yet. At some point I am going to, but it's really remarkable because it's obvious, for one thing. A lot of people are expecting this to have been her last appearance with TNA. They expect her to actually be WWE bound, and of course I certainly think that's been obvious for an incredibly long time. I think that probably was the case, I believe it was last year or the year before, whenever it was that she came out as a participant in the Women's Rumble. I think it was obvious that she'd ultimately see her way into WWE, and the reaction that she got at the time was also second to none. I mean, whether it's NXT main roster, which either way it's win-win no matter how you slice it up, even if you have her on NXT for all of a few months before debuting, whether it be going into WrestleMania or even the Raw after Mania. Either way, you're going to have a really good get for WWE when all of that becomes official. And of course, it helps that you've got this new partnership between WWE and TNA. So maybe you haven't really seen the last of her in TNA. Who knows? I mean, it's just really, really cool to see. Got a really good send-off. I would like to think everything about it was as good as it can be, but I guess that really depends on who you ask. And I say that as I transition into talking about one Tessa Blanchard, her opponent, her final opponent in TNA. Oh man, this one's really interesting because it was made public on countless occasions that Jordan was absolutely against this. I absolutely do not blame her for this. And I'm not going to actually pretend that I know anything about the ongoings in the locker room or so on and so forth, but I will say one thing that I find to be considerably important, and it's been proven over recent years, and I think with time in and of itself, but work environments are very, very important, and maintaining good work environments, I just can't say enough as to how imperative that is, just having seen so many different ones myself. Now, again, I'm not going to pretend to know anything about how a pro wrestling locker room works. I've never been in one, and I certainly, haven't been close enough to one to even pretend that I have any remote idea of what that's like. But just given the things that, have been reported and seemingly confirmed, it just goes to show it was one thing she was able to get away with a lot of this shit once upon a time, but you see, again, that's why I mentioned the work environment. Shit was just different at that point in time. You're not going to get away with these sort of things now, and the key thing about this, and I'm pretty sure this has been talked about, I want to say that I said this in previous videos when I've talked about this, she's literally on a CM Punk type situation where not only is it a last chance situation, but the next real fuck up that she has, she's up out of here. We never see her again anywhere, at least as far as North America is concerned, or at least stateside. I mean, maybe she'd be able to be good to go back to Mexico and do whatever she can out there, or perhaps do like a lot of other wrestlers, become a podcaster. Not sure how that would go, but who knows. I just know that it's just really, really interesting to see that this actually worked out the way that it did, as troublesome as she was and how she made things. I mean, yeah, I don't know. We'll see where it goes from there, especially with the promo that she decided to post on Twitter afterwards. Anyway, we'll see what happens from there, but we're going to move right along. And speaking of shaky backstage situations, man, this one's going to be a doozy. I gotta take a drink for this. Excuse me on that one, but yeah. As it's been revealed today, seems as though Britt Baker may actually be done with AEW. I had to really take my time getting to a point, excuse me. See, that's how bad it was. I can't even say that correctly, but I had to actually bring myself to a point to where I thought very carefully about the things that I want to say, because this one's just been every bit as interesting and possibly every bit as tumultuous, or turbulent rather. I guess tumultuous is a good word too, as Tessa Blanchard has been with TNA. Britt Baker apparently has had that to a significant degree with AEW, and I'm not really sure about the details or how any of it got to being the case. Not a lot has actually been revealed about that, aside from the fact that a lot of people in that locker room do not care for her. I mean, it's even as bad to a point to where, as it's been revealed, a skirmish with MJF, which, if I recall correctly, he actually even denied it. Now, how much of that might actually be true, I don't know. That's, again, as I said before, I don't pretend to know shit about what happens backstage in a locker room, whether it's this, even a pro sports locker room, whatever the case may be. I don't know anything about what goes on with them, and, excuse me, I sure as shit don't know anything about what's happening in their lives. I figured we didn't see Britt Baker because of a lot of personal shit, but it seems to go even deeper than that, to the point to where apparently, as it's been worded, Tony Khan is actually fed up, and he's keeping her off TV, much like a Ricky Starks, Ray Phoenix, and Miro, amongst others. Malachi Black now likely going back to be Aleister Black in WWE. I mean, I don't know. I'm not sure if Britt's necessarily going to leave to go to WWE, but the fact that this is even a thing is really, really alarming, and I just had no idea that it's actually this bad at this point, which is really, really sad. I think we got to acknowledge Britt for what she has been for AEW. Of course, if you follow Steven Larson the way that I have, I remember watching them talk about it on countless times. Asuka was actually back in 2020 the empty arena MVP, but Britt here ended up being the pandemic MVP, and I'm not even sure if it's close. And if anything, AEW thrived in part because of that. Man. I guess we'll see where it goes from here, but gosh, I'd hate to see this actually end up being the case. I love Britt Baker. I love her as an AEW original, and it would really sadden me if it wound up being a thing to where she left, but it is what it is, and it's kind of a thing with a lot of these things that have happened with AEW, but we'll see what happens. With that, I'll go ahead and cut it there. Y'all know what it is. Like, share, subscribe. Hit me up with what y'all are thinking down below, and yeah, that's about all I got. And of course, as always, this has been your time with AJ, and I appreciate you spending it with me.